Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into a really baffling case, the disappearance of Brandon Swanson.
Yeah, Minnesota, May 14th, 2008. It's one of those that sticks with you.
It really does. And what's so striking is, this wasn't the dark ages. We had cell phones, widespread use.
Exactly. But he still just vanished completely.
It shows you, I guess, that technology isn't everything. There's still unknowns.
Absolutely. The unpredictable human element, random chance.
Yeah.
It can just create these enduring mysteries.
So let's set the scene a bit. Brandon's 19 years old. He's just finished the spring semester at Minnesota West Community and Technical College in Canby.
Right, celebrating with friends in Marshall. A pretty normal end-of-term night.
Exactly. Then he starts driving home to Marshall, and around midnight, maybe a bit after, he crashes his car, puts it in a ditch.
But crucially, he wasn't hurt.
No, that's the thing. He's okay, gets out of the car, and he does what you'd expect, right? He calls his parents.
Annette and Brian Swanson. He calls them for help.
And that's where this whole thing starts to get, well, strange.
Yeah, it goes from a common problem car in a ditch to something completely inexplicable.
So Brandon tells his parents he thinks he's near Lind, Minnesota.
Right. So they immediately jump in their truck, head out to find him.
And they stay on the phone with him. This is maybe the most incredible part. For 47 minutes.
47 minutes. Think about that. Constant contact, pretty much.
Yeah, even with the dropped calls, spotty reception, they kept reconnecting. 47 minutes of talking.
But they never found him. They couldn't locate him. He couldn't seem to locate them.
It's just agonizing to imagine. That connection, that hope, minute after minute.
And it highlights that frustration with technology sometimes, doesn't it? You can talk, but you can't necessarily find someone.
Totally. He even tried flashing his car lights.
And his parents flashed theirs back.
But nothing. Neither could see the other. Just darkness between them.
So after a while of this, Brandon changes tack.
Yeah, he decides, okay, I'll leave the car. I see some lights over there. I think it's Lind.
He tells his dad, Brian, meet me in the parking lot of the Lindwood Tavern, a bar in Lind.
So Brian starts heading that way, still talking to Brandon on the phone.
And then it just ends. Abruptly.
Yeah. It's shortly after 2:30 a.m. They've been on the phone for that whole 47 minutes, Brandon suddenly says.
Oh, shit.
And then nothing. Just silence.
The line goes dead.
His parents try calling back, immediately, frantically.
Straight to voicemail.
And that's it. He hasn't been seen or heard from since May 14th, 2008.
Those last words. Oh, shit.
Oh.
They just hang there, don't they?
Oh, completely. What did it mean? Was it surprise? Fear? Did he trip? See something? Someone?
It fuels so much speculation. So many theories pivot on that single moment.
And the family's ordeal, it didn't get any easier in the immediate aftermath.
No, definitely not. The next morning, about 6:30 a.m., Annette and Brian go to the Lind police to report him missing.
And the response they got was, well, less than ideal.
Yeah, they were basically told to wait. That it wasn't unusual for college kids, 19-year-olds, to stay out all night after the last day of class.
One officer apparently even said it was Brandon's right to be missing.
Can you imagine hearing that? As a parent, knowing something is wrong.
It's awful. That delay, that initial dismissal, when every second must have felt critical.
It absolutely complicated things early on. It's a tough look at how sometimes procedures or maybe assumptions can get in the way.
But later that day, things shifted. Technology came back into play.
Right. The cell phone records. They started analyzing where Brandon's call actually pinged off a tower.
And it wasn't near Lind at all.
No. The data showed he was near Porter, Minnesota, which is, 25 miles away from Lind?
Yeah, a good 25 miles, and in a totally different direction.
That was a huge breakthrough. It completely changed the search area.
And that new information is what led them to finally find his car. Near Taunton, actually.
So the place he thought he was, the place his parents were driving towards, totally wrong.
Which raises the big question. Why was he so mistaken about his location?
What could make him think he was near Lind when he was so far away?
Well, they found his car, a Chevy Lumina, in a ditch off a gravel road. This is near the Lincoln County line, about a mile north of Highway 68.
And the car wasn't wrecked.
Right.
Just stuck.
Exactly. It looked like he'd just driven onto the shoulder, and the edge was steep enough that one side of the car lifted, wheels off the ground. Stuck, but not crashed hard.
Okay. But what about around the car? Any signs of him? Footprints.
That's another really strange part. No tracks, nothing obvious in the grass or gravel to show which way he went.
It's like he just got out and evaporated.
Pretty much. No sign he lingered, no clue which direction he headed off in.
So perplexing.
The most common explanation for why he was so lost, why he thought he was near land.
Alcohol.
Yeah. He had been drinking earlier, celebrating the end of the semester. The thinking is he probably chose to take those back roads, the gravel roads.
Trying to avoid police on the main highway.
Right. And those roads out there, they're dark, unlit, twisty. They cross the highway at weird angles.
It'd be incredibly easy to get turned around, especially at night, maybe after a few drinks.
So, trying to avoid one kind of trouble, he might have driven straight into, well, whatever happened next.
A classic case of unintended consequences, potentially.
Let's just quickly recap that timeline again, because it's crucial.
Okay.
Just before 2 a.m., Brandon calls, says he's in the ditch.
Parents head out, stay on the phone with him for nearly 50 minutes, dropped calls, reconnecting.
They try the lights thing, flashing headlights back and forth, no luck.
He decides to walk towards lights he thinks are Lind. Tells his dad to meet him at the bar there.
Then, just after 2:30 a.m., 47 minutes into this whole call, oh shit.
Silence. Phone goes dead. Calls go to voicemail.
And that's the last anyone heard from him. That brief window of contact then. Nothing.
It paints such a picture, doesn't it? Trying to get help, thinking he's close, talking to his dad, but moving further away towards something else.
And the conditions that night. What was the environment like?
Weather reports say mostly clear skies, a bit of wind, maybe 6 to 9 miles per hour.
Temperature.
Started around 46 degrees Fahrenheit when the call began, dropping down towards maybe 39 degrees by the end. So cool, definitely.
Hilly, yeah. And there was moonlight?
A third quarter moon, apparently setting in the west.
So it would have gotten progressively darker as that 47-minute call went on.
Right. Not extreme weather, but cold enough, dark enough, especially on unfamiliar rural roads, to make things dangerous if you're lost on foot.
That setting moon is an interesting detail, making navigation even harder over time.
Yeah, definitely adds another layer to the potential for disorientation.
Okay, so once the Lynn police realized this wasn't just a kid staying out late, they started a search later that morning. Found nothing.
Then they called in the Lyon County Sheriff's Office for assistance.
And that cell tower data became key. The call went through a tower near Minneota.
By the next day, May 15th, they figured out the call likely came from within about a 5-mile radius of that tower.
But that radius, it was a problem, wasn't it? Geographically.
Yeah, it crossed over into 3 different counties: Lyon, Lincoln, and Yellow Medicine.
Which must have made coordinating the search effort tricky, especially right at the start.
Oh, absolutely. Multiple jurisdictions always complicate things. Communication, who's leading what, potential for delays.
Sheriff Joel Dahl from Lyon County had a theory about those lights Brandon saw.
The ones Brandon thought were Lind.
Yeah. Dahl suggested it might have been a single red light on top of a grain elevator in Taunton.
Ah, okay. You can see how that might happen. A single, steady light in the dark, on the horizon, could look like a town light from a distance.
Especially if you're already a bit lost or disoriented. Plausible explanation for the misdirection.
It highlights how easily your senses can trick you out there at night.
So the search ramps up, they do ground searches, they get a plane up for an aerial view.
And they bring in search dogs, right, from the Twin Cities.
Yeah, and later bloodhounds from South Dakota. And those bloodhounds, they actually found something.
A scent trail.
Exactly. They picked up a scent and followed it for about 3 miles.
3 miles? Wow, which way did it go?
It went west-northwest from where the car was found, led towards an old abandoned farmstead.
Okay.
And then apparently the trail went right down to the edge of the Yellow Medicine River and seemed to go into the water.
Into the river. Okay, that's significant.
Yeah, the river immediately became a major focus. Makes sense, right? Scent trail leads there.
And Brandon himself mentioned hearing water on the phone call.
He did. He mentioned passing fences and hearing running water. His dad also said, interestingly, that despite the drinking, Brandon didn't sound, like, totally out of it or confused on the phone.
So the river theory gains traction. What did they do?
The Department of Natural Resources, the DNR, brought in boats. They started searching the water.
Did they do anything else, like try to block the river?
Yeah, they actually installed gates downstream, sort of like barriers, hoping to catch anything, a body, clothing that might be carried down by the current.
That shows how seriously they were taking the drowning possibility. A major effort.
For sure. Sheriff Dahl mentioned the river had been pretty high that morning, in Lincoln County anyway, but the water level had dropped a bit by the time the main searches got going.
So besides the boats, did they search the banks?
Oh, yeah. Deputies walked the riverbanks, which would have been muddy and difficult. They used ATVs, even horses, to cover the surrounding land.
But a full grid search of that whole huge area.
They decided early on it just wasn't practical. Too vast.
Understandable but frustrating.
The Lincoln County Sheriff, Jack Vizecki, apparently walked a 2-mile stretch of that river himself every day for 30 days straight.
Wow, that's dedication.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the Swansons, Brendan's parents, they started leaving their porch light on for him that night.
And they still do, don't they?
Yeah, every single night since 2008, that light's still on. It's just heartbreaking, a constant symbol of hope.
A powerful symbol. Shows you the human side of these cold cases, the unending waiting.
Definitely. So searches continued on and off. They picked up again later that fall after the harvest.
When the fields were clear, easier to search.
Right. And this time, different search dogs, ones trained to detect human remains, reportedly picked up scents northwest of Porter, an area they hadn't focused on as much before.
Any specific location?
The reports are a bit vague, just northwest of Porter. These searches went on, in various forms, through 2011. They covered, get this, 122 square miles.
122 square miles. That is an enormous area.
Huge. And think of the volunteers, the time, the resources poured into that.
And still, nothing conclusive was found.
Nothing. Then in 2010, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the BCA, officially took over the investigation.
Bringing in state-level resources.
Yep. They set up a tip line. By 2015, they'd gotten about 90 leads through that.
Did the focus area change with the BCA?
It seems like it shifted a bit, yeah. More towards Mud Creek, which is a tributary of the Yellow Medicine River, kind of north and northwest of Porter.
But despite all that, BCA involvement, tips, years of searching.
Still nothing. No body, no clothes, no wallet, no cell phone. Zero physical evidence of Brandon Swanson has ever been recovered.
It's like he vanished into thin air.
It really is. The complete lack of anything. Not even a small personal item. That's maybe the most baffling part.
It suggests either something very efficient happened to remove all trace, or he disappeared in a way that left no trace, or something else entirely.
Yeah, it leaves the door wide open for all sorts of theories.
Which is exactly what happened. The lack of evidence fuels endless speculation.
Okay, let's talk through some of those main theories. The most obvious one, maybe, given the scent trail, drowning in the Yellow Medicine River.
Right. Points for it. The dog trail seemed to end there. Brandon mentioned hearing water.
But points against it.
Well, some reports say the dog also came out of the river and picked up the scent again on the other side or continued along the bank.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't heard that specific detail as clearly before.
Yeah, accounts vary a bit. Plus, the river was searched incredibly thoroughly, right? Boats, divers, walking the banks, those gates installed downstream.
And they found nothing. The water levels dropped too. And Brandon's own mom, Annette, has said she just doesn't believe he's in that river.
So drowning seems maybe less likely than it first appeared, despite the initial scent trail.
Okay, theory 2. An accident or exposure. Hypothermia? Maybe he fell in the dark, hit his head.
The cold was definitely a factor. Hypothermia is a real possibility if you're lost, maybe wet, disoriented.
Yeah, again.
The searches, they searched so extensively, 122 square miles. They checked abandoned farmhouses, barns, sheds, fields, especially the one the dog led towards.
It seems hard to believe he could have just collapsed and died out there without someone finding something during those massive searches.
You'd think some trace would have turned up. A piece of clothing, bones eventually.
Right.
Something, but nothing.
All right, then there's the darker possibility. Foul play.
Always comes up in unsolved disappearances. Can you run into someone out there on those lonely roads?
Sheriff Vizecki even said he couldn't rule out someone in the shadows.
But again, the evidence problem. There's zero proof of foul play. No signs of a struggle near the car or anywhere else.
And he was on the phone with his dad right up until the oh shit moment. You'd think if someone grabbed him, there'd be more noise, a struggle heard.
You might expect that, yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite fit that clean cutoff.
What about the idea he just ran away, started a new life?
Seems really unlikely. By all accounts, he was close to his family. No signs he wanted to disappear.
No indication he took money, packed a bag.
Right. No financial means to just vanish and set up elsewhere. And crucially, zero credible sightings of him anywhere since 2008.
Okay, this next one is, well, it's pretty grim and specific. The farm machinery accident theory.
Ah, yes. The idea that maybe he collapsed in a field, exhausted or hypothermic.
And then early the next morning, a farmer working the field accidentally runs him over with equipment.
And panics and covers it up.
What's the basis for this? Anything concrete?
It's mostly circumstantial connections. The scent dog's trail did lead towards a nearby farm, remember?
Right, the abandoned one, or was it an active one?
Reports differ, or maybe the trail went past one to get to the other. There were also unconfirmed reports, rumors really, that a dog later alerted to Brandon's scent on some farm equipment on a specific active farm nearby.
Unconfirmed, though.
Highly unconfirmed. And there was talk that the farmer on that property was hesitant about allowing a full search.
Which could mean anything, really. People don't always like strangers poking around their property.
Exactly. Plus, the fact that the roads were graded that morning gets tied into this maybe erasing evidence near the fields.
But again, no body, no DNA, nothing definite. And why wouldn't he have been found before the farmer started work? Why wouldn't he hear the machinery?
Lots of questions. The scent could be misread. The farmer's reluctance could be privacy. It's a theory built on whispers, mostly.
Okay, another theory tied to the oh shit moment.
Yeah.
What if he stumbled onto something illegal?
Like a drug deal going down out there in the middle of nowhere, or some other crime.
Yeah, see something he shouldn't, says, oh shit. And the people involved chase him, catch him.
Maybe dispose of the body very effectively. Could tie into speculation about illegal activity on farms, perhaps.
It provides a narrative for that sudden end to the call, doesn't it?
It does offer an explanation, but again, it's pure speculation. No evidence of any specific criminal activity in that area that night has ever surfaced in relation to this case.
Some people mention his car doors being found open. Does that fit?
That's another detail that's floated around, but it's hard to confirm if it's fact or just part of the case lore. And we don't know for sure if the car was fully processed for, say, unknown fingerprints or DNA.
So, plausible scenario, but zero proof.
Pretty much sums it up, like so many theories here.
What about being hit by a car while walking on the road?
Possible. The scent trail reportedly ended on a dirt road in some accounts. Maybe a late-night driver, maybe drunk, hits him.
Panics, puts the body in the car, drives off, disposes of it somewhere far away.
Again, the road grading that morning comes up. Maybe it erased tire marks or signs of braking.
But no witnesses, no reports of a damaged vehicle showing up anywhere.
Exactly. No evidence. There's another possibility in the mix.
One more variation. Maybe he wasn't just avoiding police on the back roads. Maybe he was being followed.
Actively pursued. Why?
That could explain why he took the back roads, why he maybe lost control and went into the ditch on what was apparently a straight stretch of road.
And maybe he didn't tell his dad because he was scared or didn't want to worry them.
Could be. This sometimes gets linked to those unconfirmed rumors about a possible drug debt. A pipe was found in his car, apparently.
Okay, but again, we have to stress. No proof he was being followed, no documented drug issues or major debts. It's connecting dots that might not actually connect.
Right. Okay, so those are the more, let's call them conventional theories, even if some are pretty dark. But the YouTube video we looked at went further afield, didn't it?
It certainly did. Ventured into high strangeness territory.
They brought up missing 411.
Yeah, that concept developed by David Paulides, describing patterns in disappearances in national parks and rural areas, sudden, baffling vanishings, often with no trace left behind. Brandon's case has some hallmarks that fit that profile.
Like the lack of scent trail after a certain point, the dogs acting strangely sometimes, the location.
Precisely. Then there was the idea of, well, slipping into another dimension.
Which sounds wild, but when you have absolutely zero physical evidence...
It becomes a placeholder, almost,
Yeah.
for we have no earthly idea what happened. It's an explanation for the lack of explanation.
And then the most out there one presented, alien abduction.
Yeah, linking the oh shit
Yeah.
and the sudden silence to a possible extraterrestrial encounter.
The video even mentioned other Minnesota UFO history to kind of set a context.
Right, like the Val Johnson incident from 1979. A deputy sheriff whose patrol car was damaged after encountering a bright light. There have been other sightings in Minnesota over the years.
And they did a spirit box session in the video.
They did. Which produced some words and phrases that, if you're inclined to interpret them that way, could maybe point towards something non-human or space-related.
Look, these are definitely fringe theories.
Absolutely. Zero scientific evidence.
But in a case like this, where literally nothing makes complete sense, where there's no closure, you can see why people's minds might go there.
It reflects the depth of the mystery, the frustration. When logical explanations fail, some people look for illogical ones.
Let's circle back to something concrete that came out of this tragedy. The law.
Brandon's Law. Yes, this is a really important legacy.
His parents, Annette and Brian, were obviously devastated by Brandon's disappearance, but also deeply frustrated by that initial police response.
Being told to wait, that it was his right to be missing.
They decided they had to try and change things so other families wouldn't go through that.
They became advocates. They met with Marty Seifert, who was a state representative at the time.
He listened, understood the problem, and really took up their cause.
He worked with Dennis Frederickson in the state Senate, and together they pushed for legislation.
And in 2009, they succeeded. Brandon's Law was passed in Minnesota.
What does it actually do?
It changed the existing missing child program law. Crucially, it added the word person, so it wasn't just about children anymore.
Meaning adults, too.
Right. It mandates that law enforcement must immediately take a report for any missing person, child, or adult, and they have to make a prompt determination about whether that person might be in dangerous circumstances.
Directly addressing that initial delay and dismissal that Swanson's faced.
Exactly. It also requires the agency taking the report to notify other nearby agencies quickly.
Improving that coordination across jurisdictions.
Yes, and it clarifies that the agency taking the initial report is the lead investigator. And this is key. States police cannot refuse to take a report just because they don't believe the person is truly missing or because of the circumstances initially described.
That's huge. It forces them to investigate first rather than making assumptions.
It's a really significant change born from such awful circumstances. And the Swansons' advocacy didn't stop at Minnesota's borders.
No, their work and the work of others inspired by Brandon's case has led to similar laws being passed in 4 other states now.
It's a testament to their perseverance, turning unimaginable grief into positive action that helps others.
Brandon's Law is a tangible legacy. It ensures other families hopefully get the immediate, serious response that was lacking when Brandon first disappeared.
So we're left here, years on. A young man vanishes after talking to his dad on the phone. Car found stuck in a ditch miles from where he thought he was.
A massive search effort covering over 100 square miles turns up absolutely nothing. No trace.
Just that final chilling, shit,
Right?
then silence.
His parents still waiting. That porch light still burning every night. The not knowing must be unbearable.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? About how fragile things are, how someone can just disappear.
It forces you up against the limits of what we can know, what we can solve. An ordinary beginning leading to such an extraordinary mystery.
So, what do you think happened? Was it a tragic accident in the dark and cold? Did he fall in the river despite the searches?
Or was it foul play? Did he stumble upon something or someone he shouldn't have? Was it that farm accident scenario?
Or do you lean towards something stranger? Given the complete lack of evidence, do those missing 411 or other unconventional ideas seem, well, less impossible than they normally would?
It's the lack of any clue that keeps all possibilities, even the most unlikely ones, stubbornly on the table. What detail stands out most to you listening to this? What theory feels closest, even if unproven?
It's tough. Each theory seems to have holes, things that don't quite fit. The river theory feels plausible initially, but the lack of recovery is strange. Foul play lacks any evidence at all.
The farm accident one feels almost too specific, yet unsettlingly possible in a grim way.
Yeah, and then you're just left with the impossible, the complete vanishing act.
And in a world full of tracking devices and constant connection, that's maybe the most disturbing part.
It is. That contrast between our technology and these deep, persistent mysteries. Brandon Swanson's case is a stark, heartbreaking reminder that some questions just might not have answers we can find.
A haunting mystery indeed, and one that continues to resonate precisely because it remains so profoundly unsolved.